Today we will be looking at California Common Core Reading Standards for Literature 3 for grades 11 and 12 through the medium of John Milton's epic poem, Paradise Lost. The standard asks for the student to analyze the impact of the author's choices regarding how to develop and relate elements of a story or drama, example, where a story is set, how the action is ordered, and how the characters or archetypes are introduced and developed. Before I continue, for those that are not familiar with this work of literature or the author, it is an epic poem written in the 17th century in England by John Milton, who at the time had lost his sight and had suffered his own Paradise Lost, with the dissolution of Oliver Cromwell's parliamentary government he had championed for over a decade due to the restoration of King Charles II. The monarchy and its allies never forgave Milton for his role in the uprising that aided in causing the death of King Charles's father, and he spent the remainder of his days humbly living with his third and final wife, Elizabeth, who aided her husband in transcribing his verses to paper. The story revolves around the character of Satan, who after becoming embittered by God the Father's introduction of his son Jesus, launches a rebellion in heaven that ends with he and his fellow angels being cast into a pit of fire far below God's latest creation, earth. Satan decides to corrupt God's newest creation, mankind, and convinces his fallen comrades through manipulation to join him in creating a heaven and hell. He then fights his way through the void until he reaches the outskirts of the Garden of Eden, where despite his initial misgivings due to the beauty of God's creation, he manages to retain his focus and complete his mission against who he perceives is a heavenly tyrant. He achieves his goal and humanity through the actions of Adam and Eve, who fall into sin through knowledge. Let's begin by looking at how the setting is developed. Milton writes of three primary settings that illustrate his theme of hierarchy that flows throughout this poem. The first is heaven, then earth, and finally hell. These settings illustrate each group of characters' overall place in the universe and reflects their distance from God and perfection. At the top, God, his Son, and the angels are the highest ranked. Following is mankind in the middle, and at the bottom, Satan and his followers. This hierarchy is crucial to understanding man's place in the universe and reflects how mankind is halfway between the two extremes, culminating in a being who is capable of both good and evil. Next, let's look at the order of events in the story. The story mostly follows a circular pattern with Satan's actions in the beginning and the end, giving the story a sense of completion. Satan begins by waging his rebellion in heaven, then following his defeat, rallies his forces to create their new heaven and hell, and finally sets upward to corrupt mankind. While this is occurring, the reader is transported to Eden and introduced to Adam and Eve, whose innocent actions harken back to God's original plan for creation and man. These actions are set in a way to further another of Milton's themes of light and darkness, and contrast one another to illustrate the extreme differences between the two parallel stories within Paradise Lost. Finally, Milton's characterization of Satan, that some argue is one of literature's first examples of an anti-hero, is by far the most complex of any character in the story. This complex character is the reason why many readers find themselves gravitating toward the demonic figure, because in fact, he is the only character who behaves in a human-like way. In comparison, Adam and Eve are one-dimensional characters who are innocent to the point of naivety, as they have not succumbed to Satan's trick yet, while the angels and God in heaven are one-dimensional as well to illustrate their perfection. I hope this tutorial of California Common Core Reading Literature Standard 3 through the brief analysis of John Milton's Paradise Lost has been helpful.